Već 32 godine ovde u Londonu jedanput godišnje okupljaju se svetski proizvođači, istraživači, naučnici, donosioci odluka i kroz izložbe, tribine, predavanja analiziraju sadašnjost i projektuju budućnost obrazovanja. Obrazovanja shvaćenog u najširem mogućem smislu, od formalnog preko neformalnog do celoživotnog, u kontekstu razvoja savremenih tehnologija.
Within the room. You'll see in this animation.
Dobrodošli na Bett, Sajam informaciono-komunikacionih tehnologija u obrazovanju. Osluškujući ritam vremena i predviđajući dinamične promene u ovoj oblasti, BISA, Britansko udruženje snabdevača obrazovne tehnologije, pokrenulo je nacionalnu manifestaciju koja je prerasla u svetski događaj i globalni fenomen.
BISA carries out annual research. We carry out 10 pieces of research every year. We've been looking at the use of IT in English schools for the past 20 years, and we've got a fascinating history of the move from desktop computers through to laptops, through to tablets, and actually what schools are doing with technology, using digital devices, and now sort of downloading from the cloud all kinds of new resources for children. I think in terms of the key issues for UK schools at the moment, there's a lot of discussion about integrating technology into classrooms. We have had an issue here with our broadband capability and Wi-Fi connectivity, whereas schools and the amount of pressure on their broadband has become such that they're needing to invest more in being able to use more devices within schools.
Na ovogodišnjem Bettu, tokom 4 dana trajanja sajma, nastupa preko 540 predavača i 850 izlagača iz preko 100 zemalja, a broj posetilaca iz celog sveta procenjuje se na preko 36.000.
It's all very well to have lots of visitors, but they've got to be the right visitors, so those decision makers. So such as head teachers, deputy heads, heads of department, as well as teachers, but who also have a very high influence in the buying. In addition, in terms of the international visitors, of which we see a representation of about 130 countries, which is phenomenal, we've actually had ministers of education here. All of them working the show and sourcing solutions that are right for their country and their needs.
Razloga za razmenu iskustava ima mnogo, a posebno nakon najnovijeg izveštaja OECD-a, koji je pokazao da uprkos velikim ulaganjima u nove tehnologije nije postignut očekivani efekat u podizanju nivoa znanja učenika.
Prema tom izveštaju koje je objavila OECD 15. septembra prošle godine, Srbija spada u 5 zemalja koji su između 2009. i 2012. najviše nabavljale tehnologiju, tako da naši učenici zapravo spadaju u sam vrh prema njihovim podacima o tome da imaju pristup tehnologiji kod kuće. Tako da mi nismo ispod OECD proseka po pitanju dostupnosti tehnologije učenicima kod kuće. Ne stojimo tako loše ni po pitanju dostupnosti tehnologije u samim institucijama u odnosu na način na koji se ona koristi. U toj studiji se pokazalo da smo mi od 46 zemalja, odnosno naši učenici, su prvi po pitanju provođenja vremena za računarom za igranje igrica, kako samostalno, tako i u grupi. I to je jedna važna tema za diskusiju, šta se dešava sa našim učenicima u slobodnom vremenu. To je to vreme koje oni sada koriste za igranje, a mi želimo da se udeo tog vremena koji oni onako provode online poveća u korist učenja i nastave.
Kako motivisati učenike da tehnologiju koriste u obrazovne svrhe nije ništa lakše pitanje od pitanja kako motivisati nastavnike da na pravi način koriste nove tehnologije u nastavi.
We were very fortunate here in the UK. From the early 2000s, Right up to the period of austerity, we saw significant investment in our technology in the classrooms. So actually more being spent. A typical secondary school might have in the area of £65,000 being spent on it a year, a typical primary school around 15,000. And actually, because of that, teachers and schools were able to invest in new technology equipment and also systems to run. I think that the question and the challenge we would always put and we would always recommend is that it's okay investing in new kit, but you always have to train the teachers on how to use it. Because actually, if they don't feel confident on using it in the classroom, it's not going to have the impact on the learners. And the very worst thing that we did see early in the 2000s was that some kit was bought, but it was kept in the cupboard because the teachers didn't know how to use it. So the government has very clearly got that message. We recommend, our suppliers recommend to schools when they're talking to them, you really need to make sure that you invest the budget for training too.
Poruka je jasna. Nastavnik je nezamenljiv, ali digitalno kompetentan nastavnik, nastavnik koji će znati da upotrebi informaciono-komunikacione tehnologije za postizanje najboljih obrazovnih ciljeva. Ovo je tema o kojoj se ozbiljno razmišlja i u Srbiji.
Najveći oslonac u sistemu obrazovanja su nam nastavnici. Mi imamo izgrađen sistem profesionalnog usavršavanja nastavnika i u okviru tog sistema postoji ozbiljna ponuda za sticanje IKT veština za nastavnike. Trenutno je oko 3.500 nastavnika prošlo neki kurs iz oblasti sticanja informatičkih znanja. Ono što mi želimo je da se to nadogradi na digitalne kompetencije nastavnika i iz tog razloga spremamo ovaj dokument, odnosno putokaz šta je to digitalna kompetencija nastavnika i kako on uz pomoć raspoloživih alata i servisa može da unapredi nastavu.
Nove tehnologije su donele revoluciju u obrazovanju. Nove mogućnosti za prezentovanje i usvajanje obrazovnih sadržaja temeljno su promenile obrazovanje kakvo smo poznavali. Glavno pitanje ove godine glasi: kuda će sledeće nove tehnologije odvesti obrazovanje?
Expeditions is a new product. It is actually it's a simple cardboard VR viewer and with a smartphone, and you just drop it in and we basically have a teacher tablet. And so all of a sudden teachers are able to guide their students all over the world. Teachers are able to bring abstract concepts to life in the classroom and really break down the four walls of the classroom into this like super immersive experience. We participated in a hackathon, so we had 36 hours to come up with an idea. And we said we have this team that knows how to build products for teachers and students. That was the classroom team. We have all this amazing 360-degree imagery, which is part of Google Earth and the Street View team. And we have this new platform called Google Cardboard. What if we put all of that together and really created this dynamic experience for teachers to be able to take their kids to places a school bus could never go? And so we developed the product. We piloted it in 4 countries and 100 classes with 1,000 students last spring, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive.
So at HP we have a strategy regarding education, and that strategy is access plus learning drives meaningful outcomes. And we actually start with the meaningful outcomes. We don't start with the product. This is one of our education edition products. It's designed and built from the ground up. So it's actually designed for the rigors of education, but it's only a tool. It's a tool that's enabled by the software to drive the outcome. However, it must be the right tool. And this is one of those tools that we would deploy within the education environment. I can drop this from 70 centimeters. Doesn't break. You're surprised by that? Actually, that's why it's designed from the ground up, to survive within the rigors of the classroom environment. We also have something which is crucially important, into which we're launching this year, called HP Adaptive Learning. That's a product we've developed with a company called Fishtree, whereby we can actually give resources to the educator, the teacher, which is based upon Serbian standards. And it's based upon the standards that you set, not what we set. And it's driven by the IP address or the telephone number, which says that actually You're in Serbia, this is the content that's appropriate to you. The teacher can call up that content and use that to aid within the learning environments.
Brainstorm is a software company, and we come from the broadcast industry. So what we're doing now is we're applying that same technology to the education sector. Okay, and this, the smart set as we call it, is a presentation tool to bring to life the teaching and learning experiences. Creating the content can be done with software packages like 3D Max, Maya, After Effects, and so on. And that can be imported into our smart set, and it can then be animated and presented in an engaging and visually enhancing way for the content. But this is a prototype, and we're approaching we're showing it for the first time here at Bett 2016, and seeing what the reaction is of the public and potential clients of it. Yeah.
Osim atraktivnih štandova, veliku pažnju publike privlače raznovrsni diskusioni i tematski sadržaj sajma.
We have different types of content, all of it on the show floor. So for example, we have what I call Highbrow, which is the Leaders Summit, both in terms of school leaders and also higher education. Then we have Best Practice in our Learn Lives, where you've got practitioners, so teachers, sharing their experiences with other teachers about what's working, what's not working. And then in the arena, that's all about the wow. It's all about the inspiration. Everyone needs to be inspired about what they do for a living every now and again, particularly when you're in charge of the next generation's well-being.
U Bett areni jedva se moglo naći mesto za predavanja o čudesnoj formuli uspeha koju proučava Angela Lead, psiholog sa 7 miliona pregleda na YouTube. Svi su hteli da upoznaju Jordana Caseyja, wunderkinda iz Irske, najmlađeg preduzetnika u IT industriji.
I really believe in trying to make learning as fun as possible. And really, that's a very old-fashioned idea. So, for example, in 1899, which is over 100 years ago, when Professor William James, who was then in the psychology department at Harvard, gave a lecture to teachers, he said exactly that. He didn't say gamification, but he said that really teachers should make schoolwork and learning as engaging and as fun as possible. But I will say this, I don't know that you can gamify everything to the point where there's really a kind of effortless enjoyment at every moment of the learning process. So we should do this is exactly what William James said, we should do our best to make it as fun as possible, but we might need to teach kids, and I think we will, the skill and the habit of doing things even when they're not, super fun, right? Like my job, I love my job so much, but I would say 70% of it is incredibly hard, right? And like sometimes boring and like, all these other things. So children, I think, do need to develop a capacity for these negative emotions that really are kind of part and parcel of learning.
I live in Ireland, we don't have a lot of computers in the curriculum, but like say here in England, like they teach programming and everything, which I think is really cool because kids, I know it's education, but kids can be really creative with the educational products. Like Minecraft, you can be really creative and you can learn at the same time. With programming, you can be creative, you can make what you want, but then you're learning a valuable skill. So as long as kids get to be creative and express themselves and they're not confined to instructions and rules and you have to do this and you have to do that, I think it's really cool.
Already, even in my own research program, and we are not on the cutting edge of technology, but already we thought, well, we used to go in when we did an intervention and like I myself or another person would teach a lesson to kids, but you can't really teach a lot of kids that way. So in the latest research that we're doing, we make a video, right, an animated video, and then we have an interactive exercise and everything is delivered by the computer. When you do that, you can go into like hundreds of classrooms instead of just 2 or 3 classrooms. So that's one way I think technology technology helps, right? You can scale good ideas and effective communication. So that's one thing. But the second thing I think is really interesting and promising is to ask the question whether, increasingly I think kids are going to be learning with technology, and are there ways, for example, to have the computer adapt the level of difficulty or give information back to kids. Like if the computer sees that a kid is giving up, on like lots of easy problems that prior history suggests that they should be able to do, maybe there should be an adjustment of the difficulty, or maybe there needs to be a message to the kid, that the computer knows because it's tracking all this information. It's like, we sort of notice that, you're sort of giving up easily or answering too quickly on these easy questions. Like, let's take a moment to ask why, right? So I think there's all kinds of possibilities, and we're only at the beginning.
I started programming when I was 9 years old, so I used to play a game on the internet, and I saw that some of the people who were playing the game were making websites and blogs about it. So I just thought that could be a fun hobby for me, something fun that I could do. And I started writing my own, I started watching videos on the internet, I started reading websites, things like that, and I built up a knowledge. And when I was 12 years old, I launched my first iPhone game, which did pretty well. I'm 16 years old and I'm from Ireland, and what I do is I'm an entrepreneur. I don't really have a secret. Like, I just realised that I knew what I wanted to do for a career, and there was nothing stopping me from pursuing it. Like, there was no boundaries. Like maybe 30 years ago, if someone wanted to make their own games, they would have had to go to a publisher, they would have had to sell it in a store. But with my generation, I'm able to make a game and then launch it to billions of people with the click of a mouse. So I'm really lucky to be part of a generation where I'm able to do that.
Ellen Stofan, svetski poznata naučnica, koja proučava Mars i druge planete, rukovodi nasilnim programima, došla je na Bett da pruži podršku ženama u nauci.
I have somewhat of an unusual background because my father worked for NASA, so I went to my first rocket launch when I was 4. My mother was a science teacher, and I was one of those kids who loved to pick up rocks. And so science was always sort of something there for me. But I think what actually convinced me to actually go into science was the fact my parents encouraged me. They really thought it was great that I loved science. They never let me feel like it was something where I wouldn't belong, where I wouldn't be able to succeed. And I think for kids, having that encouragement, whether it's from a teacher, a parent, or even a friend, to say, you can be a scientist, you could be good at this, you could succeed, that's really important. It's really important for kids to be exposed to technology because it is the way the world works now. You have to be able to use computers, you have to understand they're a great tool for gathering information, for manipulating information, because really there's so much data out there right now, and to try to turn that into something useful is a huge skill. Kids need that, and so I think the more we can be really using technology in classrooms in really positive ways to say, how can we supplement the way we've taught in the past with technology to really help move education forward into this century.
U Velikoj Britaniji danas deca uče programiranje još u vrtiću uz igračke robote. Programiranje je zauzelo važno mesto u reformisanoj školi. Veliki boom na globalnom nivou napravila je britanska fondacija Raspberry Pi. Lansirajući kompjuter od $25 veličine kreditne kartice, kako bi podstakla decu da uče programiranje. Preko 7 miliona primeraka prodato je za samo 3 godine, a na ovogodišnjem Bettu predstavljen je Astro Pi.
When people see a circuit board like this, what they often think is that it's a slave device that they have to plug into their home computer. But it is not, it's a computer itself. So imagine the base unit of your computer at home, get rid of that, that's what you need. You plug in a mouse, a keyboard, monitor, power, and that will boot up into a desktop environment. What we're doing here, we're doing a project called Astro Pi, which is a project involving British ESA astronaut Tim Peake. Okay? Now we have 2 of these Raspberry Pis on the International Space Station right now. Okay? Now we made this add-on board especially for the mission. Okay? Now this is called the Sense Hat. And you take a Raspberry Pi and this add-on board, and it clips on like that, and then you have an Astro Pi. Okay? And now what that is essentially exactly the same computer that is on the International Space Station. Now you can say to your kids, do you want to see your code in space? Now I can just demonstrate. If I just do this now. Are you there? Now if I'm Tim Peake, I can come along and press, and then it says yay. Now it's going to take a picture of me, and then it says thank you. That's primary school kids interacting with an astronaut in space.
Učenje kroz igru više nije princip koji važi samo za decu. To je pokazao Lego Education, koji je nedavno stigao i u Srbiju.
Lego Education is a range of resources and solutions which are targeted at children from as young as 18 months old all the way through up to 18-year-old plus, and children and students use our products in universities, primary schools, secondary schools and nursery schools all over the world. What you have here is a selection of EV3 robots that have been programmed by my colleague David via his iPad over there. What we're asking the students to do is build a robot using their own creativity or innovation, or they can follow some of the guides that we have within the software, program it and then make it move. The way we've added real value to the Lego brick is by making these resources relevant to what the teacher is trying to do in the classroom. So before we create a resource or a solution in Lego Education, we clearly identify that there is a need for it in the classroom, and we truly believe that we can impact learning with this specific resource.
Uradi sam, sastavi svog robota, igraj se, uči, istražuj, poručuju sa različitih štandova. A neuropsiholog Tony Prescott, profesor na univerzitetu u Sheffieldu, bi dodao: druži se, komuniciraj na nov način.
This is a robot called Miro that we've developed as a collaboration between my university in Sheffield and Sebastian Conran, who's an industrial designer. And we have a new company called Consequential Robotics, which is launching this as a robot companion. Shall I turn it on? So this is a prototype. So Miro is a friendly robot. He's designed to interact with people and to respond. He responds to sounds. If you talk to him, he'll look at you and pay attention. He has vision, he has hearing, and he also responds to touch, and he actually likes to be stroked like a pet animal. And you can see that when you interact with him in the right way and that makes him happy, then he changes color and he also wags his tail. So he likes to be stroked, but he doesn't like loud noise. So the background noise here is not making him very happy. We're designing this initially for hobbyists who want to build a robot. They'll be able to buy a kit to make their own robot. But then we also want to make it available to people who want a robot companion in their home. And that could be really useful for people who are older, because we can design the robot so that it can help you, for instance, remind you your appointments, help you access things, contact people, all those kinds of things. But it's really going to be a lot like a pet. So it's going to have the functions of a pet in terms of providing some company and some behaviors that are interesting and engaging. So that's what we're working on. The world is changing so fast that children are involved in that change and that they are up to date with what's happening. So if we bring technology into schools, they're the people that in 20 years' time are going to be creating the next generation of technology. And for them, these kinds of things won't be that new by then. They'll just think this is, oh, that's a robot animal, and that won't be so surprising. So I think it's great if we involve children from as much as possible in technology, and bringing it into the classroom is a great way to do that.
My generation were just born into this sort of the internet and like having any information at your fingertips. So hearing about my parents' stories, like when they were younger, they only had one TV and like they had no mobile phones or anything. They only had one TV channel, and like it's just hard to think about that. But also a world without the internet, it just feels a lot more lonelier, I think. Like not knowing what's happening in certain parts. Just everyone is connected all the time through the internet, and I think it's one of the most important things ever. Like it's I cannot imagine a world, my life without it. I really can't.
Srbija je već 2013. donela strateški dokument vezan za razvoj IKT-a u obrazovanju, ali to nije tipičan strateški dokument poput naše strategije razvoja obrazovanja 2020. To je takozvani dokument koji spada u oblast meke politike. On je jedan izvor ideja kako mi možemo što bolje integrisati tehnologiju u sistem obrazovanja. I to je njegova jedinstvenost i dragocenost. Na primjer, kolege iz Finske su se raspitivale za taj dokument iz razloga što to nije kopirano iz neke druge zemlje koja je možda i bogatija, ima neko drugo iskustvo ili više resursa, ali interesovali su se za taj model. Na osnovu tog dokumenta dalje su rađene brojne druge aktivnosti koje mi sad treba u narednom periodu da ispratimo, odnosno da ispratimo implementaciju i uticaj takvog jednog instrumenta. I to su sada neka pitanja koja treba da otvorimo za diskusiju, da se ne plašimo budućnosti i da vidimo kakvo obrazovanje, kakva struktura obrazovanja u budućnosti nam treba u novom informacionom društvu.
U proteklih pola sata pokušali smo da vam dočaramo atmosferu na ovogodišnjem Bettu i da odgovorimo na neka od aktuelnih pitanja iz sveta obrazovnih tehnologija. Ukoliko vas je sve ovo zainteresovalo, prva sledeća prilika je da posetite 26. i 27. februara u Belexpo centru treći sajam i konferenciju pod nazivom Nove tehnologije u obrazovanju u organizaciji Britanskog saveta u Beogradu. Dakle, priča o novim tehnologijama u obrazovanju se nastavlja. Doviđenja!